Land opportunity, How to Land Opportunities and Meet Relevant People by Albert Shin. After he presents for an hour, we'll have a set of announcements about the other services we offer job seekers. Then we'll bring Albert back for a speaker Q&A, and we'll close at noon. Here is a question to get you start thinking about all this. What is the hardest part of networking for you? We'd love to hear your answer in the chat box. If there's an idea you'd really like to take away from this talk, let us know that as well. If there are any topics or speakers you'd like to recommend for future CAM meetings, please let us know that as well. Now, I am delighted to introduce today's speaker, partly because he shares our vision of helping people find a job. It is so vital to have work that fits, work that is rewarding, work that is affirming, and not having it is a really challenging place to be. Albert is one of those people who has helped an awful lot of people find jobs. He has a full-time job as a product marketing manager, but he is also founder of Albert's List, which helps with job search and entrepreneurship education. It was founded in 2014. It is now 49,800 people strong. Albert's List members learn job search and side hustle skills to stay competitive in an ever-changing market. He splits his time between San Francisco Bay Area and the California Central Coast, Paso Robles. I am absolutely thrilled to welcome to our stage Albert Shin.
All right, it's good to be here. I see some familiar names. Steve, it's good to see you again. I saw you on Tuesday at our networking event. And I'm calling, so I hope you don't mind that. Cool. So can you all see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, wonderful. So welcome to Networking 101, how to land opportunities and meet relevant people. I hope that in the next 60 minutes that I can offer some guidance on how to be an effective networker, especially in today's competitive market. And so, yeah, this is about me. You just heard a lot of it from Marcia here. So product marketer and job search guy is, I guess I'll put here. Founder of Albert's List, we've got 50,000 people plus across multiple Facebook groups. Members have found work at companies like Google, Cisco, GoPro, Twitter, and other spots. And we always have job listings and a lot of advice in our group. And my LinkedIn there is below. So feel free to mention that you met me here at this event today. Albert's List, founded with now 49,800 members, job search and entrepreneurship bootcamp programs to drive career success. And so today's agenda, fairly simple, so I'm going to talk a little bit about the state of the job market and why networking is probably more important than ever. We're going to talk about the principles of good networking and applying networking into your job search, and then have some closing thoughts. And I don't know that this will take the full hour, but we can definitely expand out as we see fit, and maybe have more time for question and answer, and even practicing some of the things that we'll learn in today's session. So the state of the job market as it relates to networking. So if you haven't been under a rock, if you have been under a rock for the last little bit, you know that the market is pretty bad. This is a graphic that I've shared on Albert's List a few weeks ago, and basically what it says is that we now have fewer tech jobs in California than we did before the pandemic. We have given all of our jobs back, and now we are actually, I think, under, because we have had so many layoffs, the market has stagnated, and we just things just don't look good as much as they used to. And this is bad for us because it means that there's fewer jobs to go around. People feel like they're struggling and they don't know why. And really, the state of the market will showcase why. And so, among other things, right? The unemployment rate continues to creep upwards, and all of this is part of what I would describe as the as what's supposed to happen, which is kind of a weird thing to say, but inflation was high, and because inflation was high, we had to figure out a way to lower it. And the way to lower it meant that we needed to tamp down demand and increase those interest rates so that capital would be more expensive to acquire. And as a result of capital being more expensive to acquire, we needed to companies wanted to let people go because some things just became way too expensive overall. So even though job openings are a lot higher than they were still at the beginning of 2020, tech has been disproportionately impacted. And I'm sure many of us here are continuing and feeling the pain of what's going on in that realm because of those specific economic conditions. And yeah, that is true. It is the government-friendly unemployment rate, not including those who are underemployed or who aren't registered as unemployed, who are taking benefits. So even though you see that 4.5%, that 4.1% number, I believe the U6 number, which is what the Department of Labor uses to describe overall unemployment, but not reported in the media, is closer to that 6% figure. So, right, so all this comes out to being that there's a lot of economic uncertainty, the combination of things like AI, high interest rates, and an election year where companies are trying to figure out who will be elected, make hiring very uncertain. Fewer jobs mean more applications per job, and with applicant tracking systems being swamped, not everyone gets seen. And so the margin for error as you apply for every single job is bigger than ever. And so one of the few solutions that you can have is to become a better networker so that you can be referred. And so if you have an interest in the tech, let's see. I think I'm just going to answer questions as they come through, baby, because it's easier. So Norbert, you said, I've been interested in tech. Would you say that if someone wants to transition into tech now, it's not a good idea considering the downturn? Yeah, I would absolutely say that because if you don't have any previous experience in tech, you are going to have a very tough time because there's a lot of people who are experienced in the field right now who are having trouble finding that work. And so they're going to be likely interviewed over you unless maybe you can network your way in and explain in the interview process that you have very solid transferable skills and somehow explain that your transferable skills over somebody's existing skills is better and that would make you a stronger candidate. So it would be incredibly hard if somebody wants to get into tech, even if they were to be referred and network well, unless you're willing to take like a super entry level job, and even those are rare these days. So
Mm.
yeah. All right, so the next section here I want to talk about are the principles of good networking. And so I have, I think, five or six of these here. And I wanted to talk about this as a sort of a foundational aspect of what makes networking good because and yeah, entry level jobs have ridiculous requirements that it is. They want you to have 20 years of experience for a 2 years of experience job. And I copy and paste for those of you who are in the Alberts List community some of these job descriptions, and they go for paragraphs upon paragraphs upon paragraphs, and they pay you 25 bucks an hour. And I just shake my head because it's just like, why? Like, you really need someone to do all of that? And that's the state of the market where you have a lot fewer people doing a lot more work and you just have to find ways to cover that gap. All right, so principle one, focus matters. So the story that I have to tell you here was that when I was a much younger job seeker and a much younger professional in my 20s, this is the biggest challenge that I had. And for the first 5 years after I graduated from school, I networked without a lot of focus. I networked in communities and places where I was just thinking, cool, it would be nice to meet people, and I wasn't sure where my career was going. And so I oftentimes found myself in, say, small business networking mixtures when in reality I was somebody who was a corporate marketer and probably should have networked with other marketers. And so the first principle here is that it's important to go where you have value and where you can be the most focused. So if you're a product manager, going to an event with small business owners may not necessarily be the best use of your time. But attending something like a Silicon Valley Product Marketing Association is probably going to bring you the relevant connections that you're looking for. And, relevant connections is always really helpful because in that sense, you feel a lot happier that you're around people who you relate to, people who are going towards the same route as you are in terms of a career path, and you just have richer conversations because you're hitting that on the mark. So that's the second bullet, right? Seeking out networkings in your networking events in your specialty. And if they don't exist, I implore you to create them, right? So this is just as I created my own table with something like Albert's List, you too can create your own event within your own function where you can meet people of different of the same type of work. Now, if you believe that variety is the spice of life, Albert's List is actually a pretty interesting community for this because you can meet people from all sorts of different walks. On any given day, there are people who are content marketers, administrative assistants, product managers, software engineers who can offer you that sort of advice or insights that can help you with wherever you want to go next. So again, right, the more focused, the more relevancy, but you can also use general events, including events like this, to get more focused, to meet the people who can then say, hey, I know somebody who works in your career field and can introduce you to a group that is relevant and helpful. So that's number one. Principle number two, and these principles in some sense aren't necessarily in order of importance, as much as they're considerations that you should have as you go through your networking experience. So number two is to be interested. And so the whole notion of that comes from how a lot of people will say that you need to be interesting because people will approach you, but people won't know that you're interesting until they know that you're interested. So there's a little bit of human interaction here at play. And the reason I chose this one as a principle is because networking events by default are awkward interactions between people. You throw a bunch of strangers into a room and you hope that they can make something of it. And that's always my biggest fear is that when I run my own networking events, that somebody will come, they will find nobody that's of interest to them, and they will somehow leave, and the money that they've spent to spend on that evening is wasted. And so being interested is the way around that because you come as the person who takes the initiative to be interested in other people. So you learn to ask the right questions. You learn to ask what brought them there. You learn to ask what they do for work, which is, a question I hate, but it's a necessary evil in this whole thing. You learn to ask, you learn to ask how you can help them. And this is actually one of the earliest questions that I learned when I became a networker is how can I help you? Even when I didn't have Albert's List, when I didn't have 50,000 people, but I still had LinkedIn connections. Um, I asked how I can help them and open-ended questions. Thank you, Carol. It's a great way to put it because people love to talk more than they love to listen. And so if you let them talk, then you become interesting because they realize that they've been talking for a lot. And then that's what gets the whole entire networking experience going. And even if you are not able to help them, even if you're not able to give them much, the piece that comes out more from this is that you've given someone space to be themselves. And you've given yourself an opportunity in that sense to brainstorm with them and say, hey, there's a lot that we can do here, and let's talk through it. And maybe the two of you can network together. I've always found that having I guess, sidekick in your networking experience is important too, because you want to be able to give people that chance uh, uh, to feel comfortable because networking events are sometimes very awkward and weird experiences. Principle number three is to know your pitch. And so this is where knowing why you're showing up at a place even in the first place. I didn't have a pitch when I started networking in 2010. It was literally I'm looking for job opportunities and I'm looking to meet people because I literally had no network. And because I didn't know what I wanted, I found myself in very random circles, and my pitch would change depending on the night because I would be at a different event with a different sort of context. So the questions that you have to ask yourself is, do you know how you're introducing yourself? Do you know what your personal brand is? Which is a completely different presentation, but it's knowing what it is that your goals are, why you're showing up, and what it is that you actually want. So if you are a product marketing manager like I am these days, and I'm in firmly in the product marketing and content marketing world, I would show up to a marketing specific event and I'd say, I'm a software product marketer or software content marketer looking for my next opportunity to work for a late stage startup or a larger corporation where I get to launch products, write content, or support product marketers in their efforts to get something out in the market, right? So that's super, super specific, super actionable because you may know somebody who does those kinds of things, and if I somehow showed up at an event of accounting finance people, I would quickly feel very out of place because that's not what I want to do. And so as we go through this presentation today, I would like each of you to open up a Word doc, open up a piece of paper, and ask yourself these three questions. Like, do you know what your personal brand is? Do you know why you'd show up to anything? And do you know what it is exactly that you want? And the strength of networking actually comes from that third question, is that if you have no idea what you want, anything will do, but that anything that will do may not necessarily get you what you want at the very end. So ask yourself that question first. And when you know what it is that you want in that sense, I think the rest of it comes together. And the other thing of it is if you don't know what you want, you can always experiment with several things too. Networking events being what they are can be a lot of different things. And so you may need to go to several different types of networking events, from the general networking events that Albert's List runs to more association-based events, to, things in between, such as events like this today. Thank you, Ian. Principle number 4 is to have a call to action, right? So networking without a goal is just conversation. I think that a lot of us go to these events and we have great conversations, but and then we give people our LinkedIn profiles, we give them a business card, we get business cards from other people, and then we go home and we shove these business cards into a drawer. We connect with these people on LinkedIn, and then we never hear from them again. And the $20 you spent plus the gas plus the time that you could have spent doing something else essentially becomes a lot of wasted time. And so we all network because we want to find a job, we want to grow our businesses, we want to connect with new people because maybe we feel isolated, which is a common thing after the pandemic. And so let's take our networking up a notch where it's not just that conversation, it's not just that let me give you my profile, but you want to understand what comes next. You want to keep that conversation going. And so is that setting up a call to talk about your goals and specifics? Is that discussing an opportunity that somebody may have? Is that discussing an opportunity to collaborate? Or is it even in that sense an informational interview where you're sharing your value, your insights, and possibly learning more about what somebody else has going on in their company? And so an informational interview is a specific type of networking that I think we'll talk about it here in a little bit later, where you learn about the company and then you hopefully get a job opportunity out of that because your questions have been so interesting that somebody is like, yeah, you may be a good fit here. And so let's move on to those next steps. Principle number 5, and if I were to rank these, this might be the first principle, is to be a good listener. And so we've all hopefully heard the term being able to know how to read the room. And so a lot of people go to networking events probably mostly to talk because they think that as a networker, it's important that you do more talking than you do listening. But truly, when it comes to networking, being a good listener is more important because one of the keys to networking is actually not taking from people, it's actually giving. So when you give more, you get more back. And so if you can offer help, you can take that route. If you cannot offer help, you're gracious about the conversation, but you can also be somebody who provides a lot of really great ideas. And the other part about being a good networker in the Bay Area is that the Bay Area is a very small place. Not because I have 50,000 people in my immediate network, but more so because the tech industry is small, other industries are small, and quickly a region of 10 million people actually becomes a lot smaller than that because the workforce is the size that it is. And so being a good listener involves everything from saying back to somebody what you heard them say. It involves sharing what it is that you think might be a good fit for them. And it also involves knowing when to walk the other way. So if a conversation is not going well or a conversation is not a good fit, knowing to say, hey, I don't want to waste your time any further. It sounds like we're not aligned with what we want. I'm happy to stay in touch. Maybe something will come up. But on the other hand, I want you to go and meet people who will be a good fit for you. Um, in terms of networking for college students, I think actually college students can offer a ton to experienced professionals and be a good listener. One of the best things about being a college student, and thank you for the question, Carol, is that college students have not had any experience when it comes to the professional world. And so they can offer fresh ideas, they can offer different ideas that have not been considered previously. And that's important because for professionals like myself who've been working for 14, 15 years, we're set in our ways. And that's both a good thing and a terrible thing. It's a good thing because we've developed a process to figure out how to conduct business, but it's a terrible thing in that if you aren't disrupted in your thinking every once in a while and you're not told to think a little bit differently, that you eventually move into a point where you just accept things as the way they are. And then when somebody actually truly disrupts you, it's a disruption that can cost you your career and cost you a job and cost you your mindset because you're so jarred, right? And a lot of people, for example, even now, in a time when the tech industry has been so strong for so long, have been disrupted because AI has come in and interest rates are high and the benefits that they've enjoyed are no longer available to them because everything costs more and job opportunities are not so available. So, as a college student or a recent graduate, your new and fresh ideas and your fresh eyes on anything are going to make you a really good listener too, because it's likely that you will say something that a professional like myself or many of those in this room have not considered. Principle number 6 is that relatability helps. And so I think I had mentioned this before the presentation, and I want to mention again because now everybody's here in the room, is that affinity is one of the biggest tools and biggest strengths that you have going for you. And this is important because people hire, they work with, and they talk to those that they know, like, and trust. If you take nothing away from this presentation today, I want you to take away that line that people like to hire, work, and have conversations with those that they know, like, and trust. And a point of relatability is always helpful. And so if you think today that your network is really, really small, I want you to reconsider that thought. And I want you to think about where you've been in your entire life, whether it's we've all probably graduated from high school. I would say that most of us here, not judging, probably went to college. We're here in a church community with Menlo Church and the Career Actions Ministry. And some of us came from Albert's List. And, a lot of us have different hobbies, whether it's hiking, a favorite sports team, a favorite type of music. And so that's actually 7 things that I mentioned there that are points of relatability to other people. And so when it comes to that, connecting people with people in that networking aspect serves as a conversation starter. So, for example, what you can do right now is even go to your LinkedIn profile. And so, for example, I went to Santa Clara University. And if I wanted to network with anybody, one of the first things that I do is I look up people who went to Santa Clara University. And then I pair that up with a search term that I want, such as product marketing. And I would use that to reach out to people and say, hey, I noticed that we went to SCU together. or we went to SCU at some point in time. I today, maybe you later or before me. And I wanted to chat with you about product marketing best practices and what you've learned, and I'm hoping that you can connect. And so that instantly builds a level of affinity because a lot of people have potentially fond memories of their college days. Or if you're at a much more maybe you're on my Facebook group on Albert's List and you're a fan of the San Francisco Giants and you see somebody who you want to network with and maybe their Facebook profile is open and you see that they like the San Francisco Giants and you can message them and say, hey, saw you were a fellow Giants fan and that we were both on Albert's List. And I was wondering if you'd be open to a conversation about XYZ topic. And not to toot my own horn, but one of the other funnier things that I think I've noticed since starting this community is that I myself have become an affinity for people, where a lot of people actually start conversations by saying, how do you know Albert? Oh, I met him on my group. Oh, I knew him before this group. I went to college with him. I attended this event with him and so forth. And so when you've built your community to a large amount, to a certain size, become an affinity yourself. And so, Marcia, I can probably without a doubt say that you're probably an affinity to a lot of people. Al, I can probably say you're an affinity to people too, because your network has probably grown large enough where it's like, hey, um, Marcia, you know Al, and so forth, and so can we talk, right? Because that then inspires the whole line, a friend of Marcia's is a friend of mine. And so that also creates a way of like networking and getting in as well. Yes, Carol, I see your hand raised.
I did that on accident.
Oh, okay. No worries. Um, and so and so as you increase your momentum for your networking, you yourself will become that affinity for other people. And so that's how we turn communities into scale and create networking opportunities with each other that are founded on friendliness and neighborly help. And so those are important. So, with those six principles in mind, I wanted to talk about applying networking into your job search. And so there's a couple of ways to network, obviously. And so we talk about in-person, live networking events, mixers, classes, webinars such as this, online, LinkedIn, Facebook groups, email introductions, alumni associations. And then the third type of networking, which maybe is not necessarily so structured, is what I like to call serendipitous networking. Serendipitous networking might be you're on like the BART, somebody's reading an interesting book, and you summon up the courage to say, hey, that's a really cool book. Do you recommend it? And all of a sudden, 5 minutes later, you're in a really interesting conversation about what that book is about, and that conversation turns into something. My girlfriend's an extrovert, so she's frequently out and about with me, seeing people doing interesting things and naturally starting conversations that turn into like something bigger than that, whether that's an opportunity, whether that's a chance to connect, and so forth. Um, for the sake of today, I prefer to talk about in person and online, but if you're a person who does have the social capability to do a serendipitous conversation, I encourage you to do that, right? And even say right now we're in like summer, right? So there's a lot of different events going around in the Bay Area, street fairs. I think the Japantown Oban Festival is in San Jose today. That's an opportunity for you to go and network. And maybe there's a professional booth there where you can get a conversation started and somebody who's also at the booth can talk to you. Or if you're behind someone who's at a similar booth, you can start a conversation with them too. And right, read the room, obviously. If somebody doesn't want to talk to you and they're there to just have fun, know that, you got to withdraw at some point. And at the very bottom of this, right, technology has democratized how we meet people. No longer do you need to be in secret societies or having graduated from an elite university to build your network. LinkedIn makes it possible. My group makes it possible. Being on Zoom, right, makes it possible. I think everyone here is in the San Francisco Bay Area. I could be wrong. But if somebody stumbled upon Menlo Church's website and came to this event, and they're all the way out in India. There's absolutely an opportunity to join, network, and meet new people. And so in-person networking 101, right? Some of the things that I want to mention that are sort of the obvious. Dress for success. Usually business casual is the expectation in the Bay Area, although it may depend, right? We've become a lot more casual since the pandemic. Although I wouldn't recommend anyone show up to a networking event in sweats or their pajamas. Any situation could be a networking event. Know when to read the room, right? So sometimes you may meet a recruiter at an event, or sometimes you may have somebody who is a hiring manager who wants to call you off of a LinkedIn request. And it's marketed as a casual conversation, but that also means that there's an opportunity potentially embedded in it. And so having your A game on and having your blinders on to know that a conversation may be just more than a conversation is always in flight. And so, using things like swear words may not necessarily help, although we live in a world where maybe that's more acceptable now. I don't really know. I try not to go there. Be on time. You never know who you'll meet or miss. So, just because a networking event is marketed as 6 to 9 p.m., showing up at 7:30 may not necessarily be in your best interest because some people show up at 5:45 and leave at 7. Have a goal, right? So, game plan your networking events as you think it through. If you're going for a job, that's fantastic. If you're going just to meet people and your thought is, yeah, I just want to go out and meet people and get out of my comfort zone, that too is a goal. It's not as, I would say, solid of a goal, but it's still a goal nonetheless, because sometimes we get in our heads and we just need to find a way to get out. And then the last one is watch your food and drink intake. They're there to complement. I encourage you not to gorge yourself. I encourage you not to have like a gigantic plate of food. I encourage you to have food to satiate yourself and make yourself okay in terms of being able to interact with others, so your mind can work, but not to make yourself so full that you might be embarrassing yourself and so forth. Lots of ways to network these days, and these are just a few. Um, Eventbrite and Meetup are places to really just find your original events. LinkedIn, Facebook for more virtual connections, and then Luma is one of the more newer platforms out there that a lot of folks are beginning to use. So but Eventbrite and Meetup are my go-tos because people post a lot of events there, and you can use your search terms to look for events that are free, events that cost money, and then filter them down by your interests. You can also use AI to figure out your networking strategy as well. And so if you have ChatGPT, I have the latest version that I used for this screenshot here. Um, And so one way that you can do it, and Ian, if you wanted to drop the link to ChatGPT, I'd love everyone to just experiment with this for a moment, is to prompt ChatGPT to give you some ideas for how you can network and network effectively. And so the prompt that I used for this is act as if I am a or n blank, blank being your career field. What are some networking events or professional associations that I can attend? And I use that in this particular screenshot here. And so in this particular output, and I don't have the full output here because it's actually a lot larger, ChatGPT gave me about 15 different types of events. And obviously some of these are paid, some of these are free. But it's a really easy way to put together a networking strategy, because then you can research each of these 12 different things that you have here and go and look. Or you can say, I am a professional in the blank space. What are some ways to network in insert city here? And I encourage you to refine this as you go through it, because you may have specific needs. You might say, pretend that I'm a product manager in Silicon Valley. What are some free networking events that I can attend? Or what are some free networking events in San Jose or San Francisco that I can attend? And so getting super specific about this, and then using these to help you find your next opportunity can be really helpful. And so what else is it that I wanted to say here? Yeah, so this reduces the serendipitous aspect of you looking for an event and creates a strategy for you because it provides you a framework that which you can start with. So I may be a product manager that's never heard of the Product Development and Management Association, which I legitimately have never heard of. And so that will lead me to a Google search likely, which will lead me down a certain rabbit hole. And in some ways that I never might not have otherwise thought about it, now it's on my radar. Online networking 101. So if you're not in person, but you're doing it online, there's a lot of different avenues here. And you can reach a much wider audience, and you'll also have to overcome the challenge of a noisier environment. And so what does that look like? Right. So um, if you're here, if you're doing virtual event networking, like in a webinar that I run or somebody else has run, you definitely want to follow the lead of the webinar host. They may prompt you and say, hey, we're here sharing our LinkedIn profiles today, as I often say. Share us with us your LinkedIn profile. Let's do a little bit of networking. And then let's also share the location that we're dialing in from, which is always cool because for my webinars, you get a variety of people from San Jose, New York City, abroad, and elsewhere. When connecting with others, always offer context of where you found them. I have like 200 outstanding LinkedIn invitations right now because most of them are people who never say where they found me from. And because I'm a lot more discerning of my LinkedIn connections these days, my interest is to make sure that people who connect with me, I at least have a LinkedIn thread going so I know how I connected with them. And because when you become a connector, sometimes people will say, hey, I noticed you know so and so from some company. How do you know them? And then you realize you actually don't know them or you forgot how you know them. And that actually diminishes the power of networking overall. And then with virtual event networking, just like in person, attend events that are relevant to your background, relevant to your interests, something that you'll get a lot out of. Networking on LinkedIn is also compelling. So this is something that I know a lot of folks probably came here for today as well, because of LinkedIn being its level of popularity. 6 people are hired every minute off of LinkedIn, and there's a lot of different opportunities to network existing in groups, different people's posts, connections, affinity groups, and 50 million people use LinkedIn to hunt for jobs weekly. And so, with almost I would say 15% of the planet on LinkedIn by 2025, it's definitely a way to meet people. And so what are the ways to network on LinkedIn? Obviously to find a job, conduct informational interviews, get referred to a company, and connect others and become a super connector and become a person of affinity. Uh, yeah. And so how can you do that? You can also use AI to accomplish this too. And this is also something that requires a lot of refinement as well. So much like what we were doing earlier, open up ChatGPT again. And I think one of the most important prompts, I didn't mention this earlier, is the act as if feature when it comes to AI, because that puts AI in a specific mindset to gravitate towards whatever it is that you want your output to be. And so here, you're acting as if you're a job seeker and you've applied for a product marketing manager at eBay. Draft an introductory message to the recruiter to help me out. And so if you're using LinkedIn InMail, this is probably a message that would work. But you would also want to refine it downwards. So you might also say, draft an introductory message to add somebody on LinkedIn who's a recruiter and make it less than 150 words. And so ChatGPT will probably prompt you that and give you an outcome. On the other hand, you might say, act as if I'm a networker looking to meet somebody from my university that is also a product marketing manager. Draft an introduction. And so ChatGPT might give you an answer, and then you might have to refine it down to particular words. And so here's another version. Keep the message to under 250 words. And so I want to also say that when it comes to this, AI has limitations. And if you've used ChatGPT so far, you know that there are these limitations where sometimes it's evident that people will read your message and it obviously looks like to somebody that AI wrote it. Um, and uh, and so what you want to do as a person who uses AI is understand that it's merely a start. I don't want anybody here to rely it on 100%, and I want them to know that they need to probably edit any output. So once OpenAI gives you this kind of output, I want you to go back and look at it, make sure it doesn't sound robotic, and really make sense of it. Authenticity beats anything that AI can put together. Authenticity is probably the last line of defense that we have against AI, to be quite frank. And so, if you are using AI to network, it's probably a good idea, but in also another sense, writing out a message that is written by you, and then sending it back into ChatGPT and saying, "I wrote this following bit of copy. Can you refine it to sound more professional?" Would be a way that they can do it. And what I can do is I can open up ChatGPT during the Q&A session, and maybe we could brainstorm and work through this together. And so at the very end of the day, my tip is also when in doubt, look at your affinity, right? So if you have similar connections, mention that. If you went to the same university, mention that. And so going to something like this may not necessarily be as like cool. Correct. So for example, right, the line that says, I came across your profile and noticed your impressive experience in the software engineering industry. Sounds a lot like something that an AI would say or something that somebody would just literally straight up copy and paste. You can say that I'm interested in learning more about your impressive software engineering industry experience, and then kind of go in from there. And so simplifying that down helps a lot. And then, keeping the conversation going. Saw somebody had mentioned this earlier, and so I added this slide at the last moment because I think that this is a concern because you start a lot of conversations with people, and then all of a sudden these conversations hit a dead end. And so what you want to do is that understand that not all conversations are supposed to lead to something because it's a numbers game. Dead ends are natural. Sometimes you just don't have anything left to say, or that you do a networking conversation and you realize that there's nothing to relate to. And so I had one of these conversations. Um, I had one of these conversations yesterday. Somebody was putting on had an organization that I thought was in the side hustle space, and I wanted to grow Albert's List. And I realized that they were still in the validation process, and there wasn't actually a conversation with a next step there. And what I told them was, look, I understand that maybe there's not something for us today, but you are more than welcome to add me to your email list. Let's stay in touch. Maybe you have a LinkedIn profile. We can connect there. And when you do have something, or in 3 to 6 months, when you've made progress with what you're doing, let's reconnect and see what's there. And so understanding that you may have an opportunity or you have a conversation that ends in not right now is completely okay. And as a networker and as a person who's networking to your next opportunity, it behooves you to continue moving your path forward because forward is the only direction that you can really take. And so with that, I had some closing thoughts before we have questions, and it's basically that there are a lot of different ways to network. Show up, have a goal, have a call to action. Technology supplements the process but does not replace networking, and that it's important to keep things going, but also to read the room while you're going through that process. And being in more places and being in places that are relevant to you is always going to help you get closer to the goal that you have when it comes to the outcomes that you want to have for networking, which include job searching, meeting new people, and getting out of your comfort zone. And so with that, I want to invite you to join Albert's List, experience what we have to offer, introduce yourself, get to know your members. We do have people who introduce themselves in posts and get a lot of attention versus those who do not. You know that you can give even if you may not think that you have much to give, be interesting to other people and so forth. And with that, I'm complete here. I hope I provided an interesting insight for some folks today, and open for questions or comments and so forth.
Does anybody have a question? Can you say more about making the cover letter authentic?
Yeah, I would say that using ChatGPT to draft your cover letter is really good as a start, and then going in and editing it with your own writing style and inserting your accomplishments is probably the best way to go.
I'm not
Um,
sure everybody knows what their writing style is. How do you know how your voice differs from AI's voice?
Yeah, great question. So AI will have its own output, and you can tell AI to write in a professional tone, but ultimately that tone should be up to what it is that you say. And I actually feel like maybe it would be better if well, I know this is a networking workshop, but would it be interesting if we opened up ChatGPT and like sort of did a little bit of a demo?
Sure.
Okay.
Although if so we've got how long? 10 minutes?
Okay.
14. So yeah, go for it.
Okay. I'm gonna have to, let's see.
While you're doing that, here's another question as you bring it up. How do you politely disengage when someone is going on about themselves, trying to sell themselves to you?
You tell them thank you for your time. Then you say and you invite them to connect with you, and then you move on from that conversation. Let's see. I am wondering how to do this. Okay, so what I'm gonna do is what's gonna be. I'm just setting my screen up here so it makes sense.
Albert, do you think that AI has scraped LinkedIn? Like, could you ask AI who are some leading people on LinkedIn and XYZ professionals?
Oh, absolutely. Yes. Okay. So we have a blank canvas for ChatGPT here, and we can actually ask that first question. So act as if I am a job seeker looking to connect. Actually, you can just straight up ask, who are the top LinkedIn voices in product management?
Can you enlarge your
Oh yeah.
screen? Thank you. That looks good.
Yeah. So um yeah,
Wow.
yeah. So then what you would and they give you, oh, I guess these are cited from an article here, and then you would just click on what Jim has to say, and um yeah. I mean, right, AI takes content sourced from the internet because the internet is its source of truth. So the important thing here to do is trust but verify. And so would I reach out to Jim? I mean, maybe. Doesn't have that much of a follower count, but we have a lot of mutual contacts, so there's certainly affinity there. And so I would probably reach out knowing, so let's see. If I were to approach this, he's in Santa Barbara, and my friend Mark Valoria, I know he worked as a product manager in Santa Barbara, so it's likely that the two of them crossed paths. And so I would probably message him and say, "Hey, how well do you know so and so? Would you be willing to make an introduction?" So that's the path that I would take. So with regards to writing a cover letter and doing that demo, um, what you would do is So I have a copy of my resume here, and what I would do is um, I would say, so I would go to Indeed, and let's say I was looking for a product marketing manager job in San Mateo. And I wanted to see, let's say I wanted to go work at, let's say B2B product marketing manager, since that's my area of expertise. Let's say I wanted to work at, oh my, let's go to San Francisco Bay Area, widen this out a little bit. So smart news, right? So what I would say is, I am a job seeker looking to work, um, applying for the below position. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy and paste this. The following is also my resume. So I'm going to go ahead and take my resume. And I would say, write a cover letter expressing my interest for the position, right? So now you're outlining it, highlighting my qualifications and accomplishments, and stating why I am the best fit for the role. Make this cover letter under under 750 words, because we're just starting with something there, and use a professional tone. And actually, if because I do appear in ChatGPT as a search result, you could even say, um, use a professional tone in the voice. Let's just see if this works. I might have to rewrite this, but let's see. In the voice of Albert Chen, right? And so now ChatGPT is processing it. And so here, right? So this is the cover letter being written. And there we go. Um, and so yeah. And
That
so this is the initial draft, and the best practice here is to take this, copy and paste it, and then turn it into whatever it is that you want to write. Now you could also say 750 words is too long. Make it, I don't know, 400 words instead. And ChatGPT will give you that output.
Somebody's asked if you would post that prompt in chat.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so the prompt that I used was I okay. Insert the description.
And here's the next question. In the context of give and take, I often find that I overextend myself offering to help people one way or another. But the follow up takes a lot of time. Any suggestions as to how to how to network without overextending yourself with offers and follow up help?
Yeah, budget your time, uh, fill your cup before you try to fill other people's cup, and be focused in your networking. Um, if you're a job seeker and you're helping other job seekers, I definitely admire you. I hope that money is not an issue, but I hope that you are also helping yourself first. So, like for example, on my own community on Albert's List, when I'm job hunting, I am willing to help other people, but I also, in that moment, realize that I also need to help myself. And so I probably do about 60% less, but I'm still posting job listings that I find and offering insights and so forth.
Mhm.
But if the conversations that I'm having with people generally don't fit what I need, then I'm happy to direct them to other people and play traffic control there because I'm also an introvert and I only have so much energy.
Other questions?
Should we meet one another in person? The answer is no, not necessarily. I think that if you can keep it to a phone call, if you can keep it to email, those all work. Um, yeah, your time is limited and so is other people. I mean, if they're willing to buy you lunch, that's always nice, but it's not necessary.
Is it worth paying for the most recent version of ChatGPT?
Um, I think it depends. Like, there's a lot of additional GPTs that are available in ChatGPT. So, for example, um, here you get like travel, image creation, writing, and so forth. I think you can still make it like very far with traditional chat GPT. And you can also use there's also Claude as well. So Claude is another free AI tool that you can use to that you can use for writing. And Claude is actually better at writing. Um, so yeah.
I put a document in the chat that we put together when we had an AI talk
Hmm.
last fall, I guess it was. And so it's got some great resources. Let me put it in again.
Yeah. So we could write this prompt inside of ChatGPT and see what it comes out with too. Or inside of Claude, excuse me. It may not know who I am though. So.
Do you find certain tools to be more useful for certain things in terms of the Claude versus ChatGPT versus Bing versus whatever?
Um, I haven't played around with it enough, but I've been told that Claude is particularly strong when it comes to writing. So it's one of those your mileage may vary. Oh, yeah. So if you go to oh, you're talking about yeah, so this one's an interesting one. So this is so in ChatGPT 4.0, what you can do is you can upload your own files and your own content and you can have people chat with it. So like yeah, if in this one I actually don't know how much I put into it, but yeah. Yeah.
So
So
you could say it, have it say something in your own voice.
you would have it answer questions about a certain topic that you have chosen. Yeah.
So
I don't
in
even know if this one works, but let's see. Yeah,
if somebody keeps asking the same question over and over again in Albert's list, you could have that question pre-answered.
that is correct. So, let me see. Can I hide from the sidebar? This one was edit GPT. Yeah. So you would go in here and you would have like the conversation starters. And then what you would do is you would upload knowledge into here. So I would have written like a large document about myself or Albert's list. And then I would upload it here um and then it would have like other capabilities or actions that I can add with the OpenAI API, which I actually don't know how to do. And then you would answer questions that way and then you could copy the link and then you could have other people go and play with it.
Wow. Are you
Yeah,
a paid subscriber of ChatGPT or is this all in the free version?
I am. This is $20 a month.
Okay. All
Yeah.
right. Awesome. Okay, we are approaching our end time here. Do you want to make a final statement and then we'll give you a break and we'll bring you back in 10 minutes or so?
Yeah, I mean, just networking is an adventure, and I encourage all of you to take part in it and know that, it's a numbers game and just to keep going.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. This has been so useful, so actionable, so thought-provoking.
Yeah.
Well done.
Yeah. Absolutely.